What is going on, Nuggets Nation and NBA fans? My name is Tom Leuthner. Welcome back to another episode of Nuggets Today presented by FanArch. We have some topics to cover and something I will get to later in the episode to speak to you guys. Obviously, there's a community talk segment, but there are some things I want to talk to you guys about personally, not attached to the Nuggets, but I'll get to that. So the first topic I want to cover here is something that I've been talking to a lot of people in the community about, and that is the fact that there will be a fight for minutes this year rather than how it was with Calvin Booth and Malone last year, right? Booth wanted his guys to play, and that sort of led to the whole argument of Booth and Malone that got them both fired, where they're both acting very immature because Calvin Booth thought he drafted guys he thought deserved to play, and Mike Malone wanted to play the vets. So I think that David Adelman hired his staff because he wants to work with people who will trust his process, and I think that the new management system has built a team around what Adelman wants to do. Now, people like Watson, people like Duran, people like Strother, people like Pickett, Hunter Tyson, if he still is on the roster, are going to be fighting for minutes. I think a lot of it will have to do with who Jokic likes to play with. We're seeing new guys like Cam Johnson, Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway's another guy who I think is going to have to fight for his minutes. I think that there will be a legitimate competition this year, and I think that's why people like Peyton Watson, people like Julian Strother are in Denver, working out the entire summer, not doing what guys like AG, Yoke, and Jamal Murray are doing, which is going on vacation, which they're also working, but these guys are in Denver trying to make a name for themselves and be on the good side of the coaching staff because they're going to have to fight for minutes with the guys who are vets that Jokic may want to play with more. I think that it's going to be coming down to, the backup 1 and 2 right now are going to come down to Tim Hardaway Jr., Julian Strother, Jalen Pickett, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown staying in the rotation. So I think there are a lot of players who actually have to fight and earn their minutes rather than just come in where we don't have the depth because it's the first year we've seen depth and just expect playing time. So now, like I said, Strother's out there working, Peyton Watson's out there working, Duran has been in the summer league, and these guys are all going to fight for minutes against each other, which I think is a good problem to have because you'd rather more depth than less depth, and you'd rather more guys who can play and actually earn their minutes. Talking about the younger guys that Denver has that are going to earn their minutes, this next topic is super interesting. So Charlie Cummings on Twitter has made his list of the Summer League, I guess you could say, farm systems, quote unquote, and he basically ranks players who are in their first couple of years and where they are ranking and where they, obviously team per team. So, for example, his top 5 are Victor Wembanyama, Cooper Flagg, Amen Thompson, Bilal Coulibaly, and Brandon Miller. Now, he goes through just about every team. He does his top 100, I believe, in this list. And 2 Nuggets cracked the list. And those 2 Nuggets are number 54 and number 62. Deron Holmes is at his 54, and Julian Strother is at his 62. Now, I think this list is great. I think that, if you want to go ahead and study it, you can realize, how people sort of rank younger players. Like Ryan Dunn is at 39. Ben Shepherd from the Pacers, who's a guy who didn't get much playing time until the playoffs, in the playoffs rather, is at 37. Ron Holland, number 12. Pods, number 13. Khalil Ware's 18. Con Knepel's at 19. So there's a lot of young names on this list. Now, I do agree with a good amount of his list. I think it's a super interesting list and something that's great that we don't see a lot. But I will say the one thing that I would do is I would actually switch Deron Holmes and I would switch Julian Strother. Now, do I think Deron Holmes has more potential than Julian Strother does? 100% I think he does. But I also realize that we haven't seen a season yet of Deron Holmes, and we've seen 2 seasons of Strother, and in this past season, he actually got minutes, and he was able to put up a good amount of points. Then we saw him in the playoffs, and we saw that he's able to be a spark plug for a game. So that's my own personal opinion as a Nuggets fan. I would swap them 2 out and or with each other, and I would actually put Strother. If you're going to keep the 2 Nuggets where they are, I'd put Strother at 54, and I'd put Holmes at 62 until Deron Holmes can show what he's capable of. The other thing that I actually commented was I was surprised to not see Peyton Watson on this list. I think that he's a pretty good player. There's some other names on there that I think are pretty good that I think Payne Watson proved that he's better than, one name being Johnny Furphy, a guy who we didn't see much of on the Pacers. Another name, Oso Ighodaro, who I think could be really good, but at the same time hasn't really played for the Suns. They brought in 2 centers to replace him or that are going to take his minutes away. So Tyler Kolek, a guy who I think is good, but Payne Watson was a rotational piece on a team that pushed the best team in the NBA 7 games. So again, I no harsh feelings. I'm not going to argue those. I just think that it's interesting to not put a guy like Payne Watson on there. And the other thing I would do is switch out the 2 players that we do have, even though I think that if you give it another year or two, Deron Holmes will be better than Strother. This next topic is another thing that's very interesting to me, and I think that I made so many points on the side of Ben Tenzer before he actually got brought into the actual the management or the GM position or co-GM position. And the whole thing that I said that I loved about him was the fact that he played the overseas card. He was working with the players from overseas, helping them. I think it was with their visas to be able to play, and I love that. I thought that it brought a major sense to Denver's management, something that he was able to do. I love that he was able to, that he went to law school and learned the contract part of the management system. But the reason that I loved him was because of that overseas European player connection. And the whole thing with Val right now is that they're talking, and supposedly it's been nothing but healthy conversations between Ben Tenzer and Jonas. I believe I'm saying that right, Jonas. But with Val. And like I said, I think that's a massive factor in the team that Denver's building together with how Ben Tenzer has helped put together that team and has worked with players like that, where he's able to have these conversations throughout all this drama that's going on and really work with this guy and, sit him down and talk to him on the phone and say, like, these are our plans for this upcoming season, and for Val to agree with it and say that they've had healthy conversations and that Ben Tenzer expects him to be playing on the Nuggets next year. The last thing I have is community talk. The first thing I want to start with, which is what I was talking about earlier, is I've seen a lot of the comments about the white on the yellow, and I do apologize. I've spoken to my boss. We're attempting to make the font more legible. We do work with a certain template, so we're trying to work around that, but we are going to adjust it if it is possible to do. And like I said, I see your guys' comments. I'm trying to, have my page be just as viewer friendly as it is friendly for me. So we are going to see what we can work out there for you guys to actually be able to read it. And then something that has been talked about in the comments is somebody I talked about before the Summer League started, and that is Curtis Jones, who is now officially on a 2-way for Denver. I think that he's a factor for Denver's G League this upcoming year. The guy can shoot lights out. Like I said, it was talked about in the comments on this last episode. It was talked about in my community on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. He is somebody that I've loved since Denver even picked him up as an undrafted free agent. He could shoot the lights, shoot the lights out, and he had a phenomenal summer league. I think that we saw a lot of potential from him when it came to handling the ball more than just being a shooter, which I think was massive. You could see the pick and pop game, the pick and roll game. He was able to work with it. So I think Denver might be able to develop him into a player that they can call up in a few years when some vets are going and it's their time. So that's all I got for you guys today, Nuggets Nation. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know if you guys want me to cover anything down in the comments, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.